Welcome. You're listening to the Earth Conversations podcast, where we explore how to open up to the greater conversation with Earth herself and with our fellow co-inhabitants such as trees, animals, and plants through interspecies communication. In this time of environmental destruction, it truly is urgent that we begin exploring what Earth and her other than human communities are telling us. If you like to explore more in-depth material on this subject, please also visit our blog at earthconversations.org, where you can sign up to be notified through email about new podcast conversations, blog posts, events, and much more. We're excited and happy to have you join us for this podcast as we now go lie our heart at the ground and listen. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Earth Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Maybrit. Today, I'm here with Tiokasin Ghosthorse. Tiokasin Ghosthorse is a member of the Cheyenne River Lakota Nation of South Dakota and has a long history with Indigenous activism and advocacy. Tiokasin is the founder, host, and executive producer of First Voices Radio, formerly First Voices Indigenous Radio, for the last 27 years in New York City and Seattle, Olympia, Washington. In 2016, he received a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize from the International Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy. Other recent recognitions include Native Arts and Cultures Foundation's National Fellowship in Music, National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellowship nominee, Indigenous Music Award nominee for Best Instrumental Album, and National Native American Hall of Fame nominee 2018-2019. He was also awarded New York City's Peacemaker of the Year in 2013. Tiokasin is a perfectly flawed human being. Welcome, Tiokasin. It is so great to have you with us today.
Ha, chante waste na pechu sa pielo le mie malakota Tiokasi chetanzi wiki pahami chaje oyate toka he uchakie. I'd like to thank you for inviting me here to be on Earth Conversations, and over here it's a good day, and I give to you my heart and my hand, and that's just the way it is. And thanks for allowing this human being to speak with you.
Thank you for being here, and what a beautiful language you have. Just the sound of it and the connotations and the vibrations of it is very different from the English language, very heartfelt.
Yeah, I often wondered that myself, because people say that a lot, and I think because it's a flowing language, it doesn't, in the old way of thinking and being with that, and the older language is that it has no beginning and no ending, so it's a flowing language because it speaks of everything living. So we're relating from that relationship, I'd say from the relationship, rather than looking for the connection. And I think that's the big difference that I find speaking this language, English, and the other one, Lakota language, yeah.
I've heard you speak about how there, in your language, are no concept of time and no concept of domination. Can you tell us about that a little, the difference between that and the English language?
Well, yeah. If you can think about it this way, just kind of looking outside the box or outside the window, so to speak, outside your window, you see a whole different view, and it's much bigger out there. And here we're trying to make explanation as to why we're inside the box and not out there, which contains the box. The box is contained by all that is, but here I'm in the box with the language and trying to explain my existence within. And so when I'm talking about measuring and weighing, and basically that's my value set, then I'm speaking only from where the door begins and where the window begins and where it stops, and so that's the domain, so to speak, and I have explanation for that, and that's what I own, and that's all you understand, and we don't understand outside because we're not there, we're disconnected from it, where the outside world includes the box, and so our language is outside of the box, including the box, where the box itself is not including, you're only looking outside of the box and not experiencing that knowledge and that movement outside. So when it comes to the time concept of beginning and an ending, which is primarily not something that you can easily explain within a language of time, and this language of time, and I could say for qualifiers, we all know what time's about, but I have to form concepts in English in order to try to explain everything. So it begins with a subject or an object, and nouning it. You have nouns that are lifeless, and they're all things. And so I begin with that as if it was separate from you. And so we're always searching for time, looking for time, working for time, working with time, working against time, and it's all this converting thought processes into a beginning and an ending, and then we kind of line them up, and that's a linear line, and it has to begin and end somewhere, when really it doesn't begin and end anywhere. So the language is not free within that concept of times that it divides itself. But when we think universally, when you feel universally, and everything is in relationship, there, yes, we can see that a tree grows and that there are seasons and the sun rotates. But if you were away from the earth, if you were looking at the universe, there is everything is moving, but we don't know which way it's moving. So how can one explain that in a language that's sitting within the box? So this would be the way I would try to explain that dimension called time. Yeah.
So what I'm sensing when you're speaking is that the Lakota language is actually somehow a container for the experience we're having, whereas the Western language today has become a confinement of the experience that we're having. It's
somewhat that, and to rationalize why we're confined, and to make that sound really good, because we all are a product of that confinement once we begin the concepts and forget all the other original purposes that we as beings are before we were human on this in this dimension. So when the Lakota language is put into place, and I sit between two Lakota speakers, and I'm seeing or feeling the energy go back and forth of healing, and that healing, without getting too new agey, it is a how do you say it? I think the word would be apocryphon in English, where it's something that you cannot teach. You cannot learn it from books or from tapes or just listening to it. And you have to experience it with, so you're experiencing the energy between two speakers, and that's the how do you say it? The experience, the innocence that you bring in every moment, because as an uncle would say of mine, an older brother, he would say that everyone is still innocent, because we are every moment is a moment of innocence, and that we just forget the experience, and that's why we say we're not innocent. No one is innocent, type of thing. So we work with that sort of albatross across our shoulders because we're stuck in that time concept of guilt and I call it guilt and sin and blame. So we're sitting there with that sort of latent philosophy of not being able to do anything. So we make up conversation, we make up thrilling moments. The word's called hope. Hope is one of them. So we is passive. So we make up our passivity within the language of English. But in Lakota, everything is alive all the time. And that's hard to put into conception in English by just simply saying it, because we're not living the innocence, we're not living the experience, and the experience can't be taught by anyone. And that's why there are books, and that's why there are tapes and technology to try to make it comfortable within a confinement. And so we continue to rationalize no matter what language we're speaking, and that speaking is always a lacking of something, a lacking of. So we complain about what we lack, and we're always extracting and wanting to know without ever experiencing it. Yeah.
So in our experienced separation from Earth, which isn't real, but we experience in the Western culture, at least, a huge separation from Earth. So everything that we have now put into our culture is actually a kind of drug in order for us to try and gain that connection back, but we're not getting it from the right place. We're not going back to Earth and recreating that sense of communion and community with it.
So I think I would try to think about it this way as much as I can, simplify it in the way I feel is. So we like are a product of this society, and I don't call it a culture because if we are products of a society that brings other things into it to try to make a culture, it's always extracting from others to make that culture, and then we have we are citizens of denial, basically. And so we learn that language. And like I said previously, that we are lacking something. And we always feel that we work out of as if we were empty all the time, instead of the other way around, that abundance, that we have so much to give without feeling charity or obligation. So when we're products of this society, all right, we begin to act like we're a product, like we have something to contribute to, make something better, right? Because all the while we're extracting from something else and making that worse to make ourselves feel better about our existence within the box and thinking. And as you say, Western society or Western culture or Western ways of thinking, they too understand that deep within, and that's when I talk about the knowledge that can't be taught, because that's not instinctive, that's intuitional values that we haven't. English is not a language of intuition, it's a language of conception and consumerism and extraction, and all those ideas are ideal something to ideal thoughts to make something better, or at least feel better for our explanation in the box.
So how do we, because you're talking about the intuitive language or the intuitive wisdom of Earth and how that is the language of the Earth. How would you describe that language for somebody who longs for or tries to connect to it? For them, in order for them to recognize it?
That would mean a lot of work that I think an elder of mine and a mentor, actually, Martin Prechtel, said that in a recent interview within the last year, I talked to him on air, and he said a very moving thing to me as we were going along in the conversation, and he said, if you expect to see results of your work within your lifetime, then you're not worth the people that you come from. So I think that value set is not contained within the English language because it's formulated. And so within the native languages, within is the seventh generation. And that seventh generation thinking is not about yourself, it's about your grandchildren and on and on and on. It's about what we don't have as future, but it's about now, because the future can take you and distract you and put you and make things like it's hopeful and things are going to be better if we just think about the future. But no, that seventh generation is contained within you. So you're like birthing that seventh generation within you, and you're always giving to that within without being selfish, without being in love with yourself, but to love yourself as if you were carrying that seventh generation within. And that takes it gives you more freedom, gives you more responsibility to understand that it's like you can't lie to yourself, because then you're lying to your seventh generation. And so when you are lying to your seventh generation, that you see how disappointing that would be if a child came out and you just start lying to them right away. They'll never know the truth. And I think that's what is happening now with this way of thinking in the Western way, where everything is full of domination. That's the way it is. So we have to greed is good and all these little formulas to get us through each day, beginning and then an ending. And that's how we understand the Western way. Well, technology is the answer. We're looking for something that we don't even know. We know it's a mistake. We will know it's a mistake because technology has overcome us. But I look for that day when we as the being, overcome technology. So that artificial intelligence language that we're speaking is now replacing all those natural thoughts, all those natural beings, that natural processing of living with the earth. So we are ready to launch from the earth, to extract from the earth in order to get away from the earth, to go to some heaven or someplace else that's better than our situation here on earth.
It's funny, I've been, while you were speaking this, I have this notion. I'm not a Christian, so I'm not quite sure if I got this right, and I apologize if I don't. But there is this story about Adam and Eve being cast from paradise. And I'm thinking that this is a kind of mythology we tell ourselves in order for us to behave badly. Because if we're already cast out of paradise, well, we might as well make as much trouble as we can while we're not in the good company anyway. Whereas if you think about 7 generations within yourself, if you hold that mythology or that knowledge within yourself, your every action from within actually changes immediately.
Yeah, without giving too much credit and sort of self-imposed or sort of imaginative that we have power over everything, and as humans we have a collective consciousness to change things. That's kind of the mythology that people are going with now. That's like, okay, but what about the others? What the other beings here that always have not ever stopped thinking from consciousness, that they're always in the consciousness, and that indeed you can look outside and you see a tree already meditating. And even the flight of the bird and the water flowing, excuse me, all those are in consciousness. And we have evolved or devolved into a conscience. So the conscience means that there's a good and an evil, and therefore, a switch on and off. So a binary effect, sort of, and then you're either for us or you're against us. So therefore, we better all be one, and that Zoroastric type of thinking where everything becomes monotheistic, and so we're always thinking we're all one. Which in Lakota is mitakoye. It doesn't mean that we are all one or we are all related. It doesn't mean those very verbose kind of thoughts that it's subjective and objectified. So when we are thinking about one God, one way, all these narrow ways of honing, into a religion, so to speak, and then we make the authority of a god and, all of those a government, a science, so everything becomes authoritative. And so when I think about this, I have to always come from the Lakota. I can't speak for the Lakota. I can speak from the Lakota, like speaking from the earth. I think about what do we understand the differences? What differences do we understand without making them the good or the evil? And so when somebody is out there making trouble because they think that there's everything, be the most evil. So I think what happens is that, am I making trouble for the evil ones? If that is, and am I playing the game to think as an evil one, because I want to, it's sort of make the devil hate you type of game that's going on, because you can't make God like you anymore. So you must just go ahead and make everything as much trouble and get as much as you can for this lifetime, because there may not be another lifetime, because I don't know how to get to heaven, because I'm surely going to hell. And so they're just binary, conscience. So are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the wrong thing? Am I a good citizen? Am I a bad citizen? Am I following the rules and regulations? Do I know what respect is anymore? And, yeah.
Wow. Imagine, or just when you talk about it like that, I get this feeling of how much energy we're wasting just within ourself and our own being from all of that measurement all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. And it's very effective, isn't it? It's effective in the sense that you can almost see us as binary people ready to be turned on and off with a switch through technology, through that Western way of living or thinking, actually, and now living, because now we're treating nature like that, and nature has much more than just an on and off switch. It's never off; it's always on. The nature is always on, and yet we are the ones shutting it off from us, so therefore we're shutting ourselves off and just falling prey to the programming, basically, that this is the way of all human beings. We are super intelligent. We're going to develop technology so we can go to other planets, and something is better. Always something is better, because we don't want to be bad. We want to be a winner type of thing rather than a loser. So it's very deceptive of how everything is viewed through this way of thinking from the head, very cerebral rather than the intuition that I talked about earlier, where everything is in relationship to your language, in your way you feel, the way you move. Because when you walk by a tree, you could say, oh, well, I walk by the tree, but no one's including that the tree is walking by you. Yeah, the tree is walking by you, because it's treeing rather than just a noun of a tree. So it's treeing. It's all actually moving too, but we don't understand that. And how do we understand that more fully is that we already know sort of this anamahoptaye, to listen from the earth. In other words, the intelligence that we speak is in the earth, from underneath, because we already know before science knows this, because our language is quantum physics, that life communicates underneath the ground. We have ancestors' names that have been made fun of by, of course, the Americans and whatnot. That if I have an ancestors whose name is translate basically to man who walks within the earth. That's not meaning a caveman, but literally that energy to know what's underneath the earth, underneath the ground, the surface, is to understand the intelligence that's coming from the earth. So that's why there's a name like that, and that really can't be translated. How does a man walk within the earth, and so we understand the intelligence that's coming from underneath that. And if your language comes from explaining the codes, basically, that you're always uploading from the earth, and you continue to upload from the earth, and a lot of indigenous peoples are forgetting that now, and under duress or whatnot about how to live differently with the modern ways that we look up to the sky and everything is downloaded, and that happens to be a one God myth, and we've forgotten the relationship with all the other consciousnesses is here, and how that relationship really does meet out as we live every breath anyway. So, yeah.
So how do we come back? Because the problem is, languages are disappearing. There used to be thousands of indigenous languages around the world, or millions even, but there's so few left. And the more we shift over to these non-land-based languages like English and other Western languages, silence to me seems to be the only way back into that intuitive feeling with the land, where you become, the family of everything, where everything becomes my family. How do we go back? Because do we go back at all? Is there a way forward? Do we develop language from here? What do you see as a possible remedy for the situation, if there is any?
Yeah, excuse me here. I think there is that potential. I would say, I wouldn't say possibility, but a potential if we don't have to go back, that we have to go through this time, which seems to be dire to a lot of people. But I think it's a good thing that we will be suffering as nature is suffering. But that's a non-anthropocentric way of seeing it that I feel, rather than applying human values to nature, to allow nature to apply its values of nurturing to you. And we don't know how to do that because we're thinking only in a head language rather than the intuition that I talked about earlier. So when I think about how do I explain this to children, because they seem to understand a lot more than adults do. So, that means, am I that child? Yes, I am. Like I said, every moment is innocent, just as a child we say is innocent because it hasn't had the programming, or they haven't had the programming. So we're watching them experience things. When the baby walks for the first time, that's an experience, and we're like, oh wow! But we forget that oh wow innocence within ourselves. So when I tried to explain this to children, I say very simply, which is a very quantum physics thought, because quantum physics is a simple way of being, not something complicated that takes all this mathematics and all these theories. So I say, well, see that bird up there, see it flying. You see that fish in the water over there, and you see that fire over there, even your campfires, and you see the earth and that rock and that big stone over there, and you see that tree, and you see all of those other people, even I could say that animals, all of those consciousnesses, very intelligent, because all of those consciousnesses have figured out how to live within you, because that's what you're made of. You're made of all of those, the same content of the earth, and that's within you. And they are conscious. They're very conscious of what you're doing, and you're always related that way. And now, how do humans today without their being, and noticing that they're being with that. How do just humans, because that's what we are now, just humans without being, it seems. We're self-contained, and we're individualistic, and said we're not related anymore. We're disconnected. That's why we're always talking about connection language. And I say that so how do humans? Why do humans mistreat those consciousnesses, the animals and the birds and the trees and Earth herself and the water? Why do we mistreat everything and go for that's ours, and we can do anything with that because our God said so, that He gave it to us, or even she gave it to us. So we have purpose, and therefore that belongs to us. We own it. So children get it, you see, because they understand that intelligence, intelligent elemental consciousness out there is within us, but we can't live without it. We can't live in fire. We can't live in water. We can't live in a tree. We can't live in a bird. We can't live in animals. So in indigenous cultures, in nurturing languages, in nurturing cultures, the nurturing man, the nurturing human is always with that communication, with that consciousness. And when I speak English now, I have to separate myself. I have to become individual, I, me, my, mine, and ours. And that out of that, I have to form these consciousnesses. So every word that I say, every sentence that I say contains the word I. And, one of those I, me, my, mine, and ours. So that's where I have to form concepts from or with, so that I try to understand outside the window. When the children are innocent with relationship, because they're just came from their mothers, and they understand that intimate relationship with the mother, so to speak. And it kind of like sometimes when we get very old, I suppose, that we kind of come full circle. And at that time we're like, oh, if I could have lived my life differently, so we get into the regretful past, because we know there's time is running out and there's no future. And so we get into like this rut of passing on rutted language and rutted ideas. And so we're always looking for a new way, a possible way. So we're always thinking, going back to the drawing board language, going back to the drawing board concepts, a new ideas, a new world, a new technology, a new thought, everything is new. So it's always never experienced. It's always about experimenting. And I think children understand that, because of course they will experiment, but it would be an experience for them to not forget the experience. And we all remember when we were little kids, some seminal moments that we bring forward. Now we remember that. So we're always a child. We're always in the moment. And we always will be the old person all at once, and to live within that memory and potential within it. It's not about you. It's not about I or me or my or mine or all of those possessive thoughts, because we are that consciousness out there. When I talk about the elemental consciousnesses. And to remember how do I say it? That bird that's flying in the sky, and that fish that's swimming along there, that tree, that bird is a magi. It's ones who uses the tools of the earth properly, and that bird is using the tools of the earth properly to make magic. By being able to fly. That bird is not fooling anybody. Is not a magician. It's not a magician, because that's what humans have become. And humans are fooling each other by the illusion that things will be better if we just do technology. And we say it's real because, look, we can touch it. We can talk to each other over Skype. We can talk each other. And are we fooling each other? Is that another way of going back to find ourselves within the earth? Yet our language is getting so complicated technically that we forget anything natural because that language is being removed from our daily diction, so to speak. Yeah.
And what's the antidote? I'm just thinking everybody comes in, every child, as you say, comes in with the ability and the capacity for this intuitive language, which makes up everything, the consciousness that is everything. They come in with the ability to, they come in connected to it, and then they come in with the ability to also be with it and grow with it. But then something happens, society, education, programming, call it, all of those things. But so we need an antidote by now when we grow up at some point. What is the antidote?
Well, it's thinking that there is one, because we're always looking for a way out. We're looking for an exit strategy. So we're looking for developing an exit language, and it's not wanting to deal with our tragedy of concepts, because we're always looking for a higher consciousness. Something to remove us from dealing with the one that we've created, in a sense. And so therefore we're always looking outside and never dealing with what's in-house. I think that, of course, I have to think this way too, in the Western way of being, because I'm forced to live this way. I'm forced to think the way, in order to have this conversation, I have to form these concepts in my head, disconnected from my heart, so to speak. And I can't, it's difficult for me to try to express feeling in it. So there's lack of expression in this language. I have to kind of, crinkle my forehead and really close my eyes and become sort of meditate away myself. And so I calm my mind and all of these things. And as Native people are looking at people like, that's fine that you can meditate, but that's kind of isolation to us. It's like, wait, so if I'm in a group of meditators, my eyes are wide open because I don't want to miss a moment. Because I can look and see the tree is meditating and the bird flying by. All these are everything is the air is meditating, as it moves. So, I think sometimes religion gets in the way because we don't know. We've been in it the Western world has been in, I want to call it Western world anymore, because I am the true Westerner as a native person here. So our language needs to change. We're the original Western people, and that I have to Euroform language. My language and concepts are Euroforming, so I have to go over to Europe in order to speak their language, so I can reform it in the Western lands here in North and South America, and say, well, the Western language, it's really like dividing everything. So I think judgment is part of that. We live in this world of on and off, good or bad, or good and evil, and of course we'll blame the woman for that because that's the nature of it, and then we'll blame the man for blaming the woman. So it's a never-ending thing, and there's no balance within it, and we're always looking to bring home the formula, bringing home the bacon, so to speak, so we can make our situation more explainable and livable. And it's within yourself, if that's possible. It's not in your brain alone. Our bodies in Lakota are all parts of nature. And so, you're explaining your body as being connected with all that tree or that water or all these things that are from those places that we haven't extracted, because we realize that our bodies are made up of the same thing. So we never are out of that relationship. Except I do know that when when we're done with this conversation, I'll have to regroup myself in order my body connected again, or know that it's in the relationship already, because it feels like I have to separate myself in order to speak this language, the I language. Yeah. So I is a noun, as is explained individually. It's a singularity. It's a pronoun actually, and so you become subjective and objective to whatever follows I in a sentence. And so you're separating yourself and you're following that with explanation. And so when you're in a Lakota way of being, you understand the relationship that the I in English would become a verb in Lakota. So the I is a verb in Lakota without ever having to say it. So you're in motion and you're within continuance and continuum with all the other beings out there, without separating and having to meditate, so to speak. So it's a very different way. It's not one that's better or worse. It's just a different way.
And I mean, you're actually very right, and I really like this, the I language, because it is a European language. It isn't a Western language, and I think that is actually has great importance. But also, the European languages are divided up in several different languages stemming from different roots, but they're all being ionized. You can't say that, but they're all getting more and more into I form as well, and have been through this period of transformation of going into I form. Because I'm born in Denmark, and I have Danish as my native language, but the modern Danish language is without any sense of connection to the earth whatsoever. But if I go back into the Elda Etta, which is the language of the runes, and go further back that way, there were more vibrations in the language that somehow connected us more to the surrounding through those vocalizations of vibrations. And we're speaking a lot about language. You're a musician also, so the music language is that a language that can that's a language that goes beyond barriers, isn't it? And how does that connect to the earth, the language of music?
Well, yeah, I think there is no need for connection actually with the music of it. So you can walk through outside, or in this case, even sit by your window, and you'll hear language. Is it language that we create as humans? That I play the flute, and therefore comes a music, right? A music that we can hear with our ears. But when the other way around is you understanding that wind, birds hear that as language. How do other beings hear music, if that's what we call it? And do they call it music? And yeah, a bird communicating to another type of species bird, that's communication in a way, and they are multilingual. So is music. Music is a multilingual. It's never duality. So music is not. It's multidimensional in the sense that it has many dimensions of languages, and that we understanding different chords at once. We can go back and forth. We can be warblers. We can be tweeters. We can be all of these other things in language. But I think what primarily I've seen is that, again, because I'm speaking this language, it seems like I'm against and for all of that. But when I'm playing the flute, there are a lot of these native languages of music are basically minor chords, so to speak. Something that when I heard music from Europe, it was very pretty, but they were missing some grounding with the minor chords. Once in a while you'd throw one in there, but the minor chords is something between the notes, basically. I think that's what we're missing. And so refinement of music came to be a classical thing, and all of a sudden we are, very stringent, very regimented with how to understand language. We're going to put it in a note, and here's a song beginning and ending, and then we understand it that way. But the other indigenous musical understanding is communication with the earth. So we are still learning how to communicate with the earth, with our music. Even in fluting, I'm not going to sit down and read sheet music. I'm not going to sit down and try to repeat something I heard. I'm going to be in the moment. And if there are people around, that energy affects the music coming, because maybe that's the nurturing that we're looking for. So when I play the flute, it's always, as some people say, improv, but I'm saying in the moment. How do you say? It is something that is felt at that moment, because that's what the energy is calling for, and that's how I play music. It's not for entertainment. It's not. I tried not to sound pretty to people. I tried to mimic the earth in a sense as much as I can as an extractive human that I've become. And so in my relationship coming from the earth, that's what is asked of me, because I've asked the earth before I play music. I go and ask the earth, what do you want me to play? Rather than, here's what I'm going to play so I can entertain people and they'll give me certain money, and therefore I'm going to be a performer and be famous someday because I am the consummate musician and entertainer. And it's all that getting away individually. And so you have the castle on the hill and you're all by yourself. And you become that god, and you're removed from any. I could go on and on with this story, But yeah.
What is, because we've talked a little bit of how most of the world's mythology and religions have a role to play in the separation, in the perceived separation that we think we're experiencing. What is the Lakota cosmology? Because you've talked about that previously before, and I'm thinking, what does that say? What story does that tell?
Could you reframe that?
When the Lakota look at the Earth's place in the universe and their place within the Earth in that universe, how is that story formed?
Well, what is your place as a person, as a being within your universe? Because that same universe that you're within, that you understand, and you experience, and you go through, is the same experience that is out there, so to speak. Because the same thing is happening out there that's going on within your body of atoms of cosmology within your firing of your every electrical synapses in your brain, to your nerve endings, to the movement of water and space and all of that. And so we're not much different than the universe that we perceive to be out there. So that cosmology is actually within, and that doesn't mean that you have power over that cosmology. Is that you have insight to the code or the knowledge of how to be in a relationship with, and that something we'll never understand, but we'll always feel it. And how could you explain what feeling is when it's always moving and changing all the time? So how can we own something that we can't understand the feeling of, but we do feel? We know it's there, but I think it's in the acknowledgement of knowing it's there without having to explain it, because it's experiencing us as well as we are experiencing it. So you see how the language is? It we're experiencing it while it is experiencing us. So we're basically separating it every other language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The separation is unending in this language, at least. But we need. I feel this. I don't know if I feel a need. I feel a longing all the time to go back into relationship or go back into the knowledge of relationship, I would rather say, because it's not possible to be here and not be in relationship. But to the knowledge of relationship, to that connection again. And what is one thing we could do? I mean, practical thing, do, think, be, feel, well, not feel, but what is the pointer you could give that could point people back towards non-thinking and back into relationship with the earth?
Yeah, language, of course, but let's perceive this language as it's half thought. We're not thinking completely, in a sense that in the Western world, or excuse me, the Reforming thought processes that I'm speaking this language from is saying that, okay, we are people of power, we have collective consciousness, we have a God, we're all set, we have programmed, and we can do things like take care of the earth. We can save the earth. We can bless food, all of these things. And I'm sitting there feeling, that Lakota being saying, I don't want to take care of the earth. I want to give care to the earth. I don't want to own the earth. I want to recognize the earth. I don't want to bless food because the food is already blessing me. And so we don't have a complete language that completes our synapses. We're only speaking from the head. So simply, if I'm standing on the ground and I'm being uploaded from my feet on up, what does that language come out but through the mouth? So, but it has to go through the heart first and then come out the mouth. Whereas this other language that I'm speaking now comes from someplace out there, and we're thinking, that it's coming from the sky with our sky gods and the sky thoughts, and although it's coming down and it's only going through the brain and coming out the mouth. We're not with our hearts anymore. But in the Lakota language, there's this thing called nasula, and that nasula means that the brain is merely a seed of the heart. So we're not dissing what's above. We're including it. So we can always say what is above is also below, but all of that is one to us. So there's no separation, and we continue to speak a separation language. That's why we feel we're lacking, and we're in the science of it, and people don't know the etymology of this language we're speaking now, because they've accepted the easier part of it. It sounds good. We've been taken away and put into the future and regretting the past, and we don't know who we are now. So we become what in the future as to what we were in the past. So we want to be better than the past because we have the future, because we don't know who we are now. Where in the Lakota sense of being, we are always here, have always been here, be here now, which when we heard that a decade ago or so, we were kind of like giggling. It's like, oh, it's funny because we don't have a joiner, or I don't know what you call these things, but we don't have to be. To be what? To become, to be something, to be other than we are. It's we can't figure that out. There's no to be, because we evolved past the joiner of to be something, you see. And so that, I think it's always focusing ourselves outside of it in order to be what we're not. So in Lakota, we can't to be anything but who we are, you see. Yeah.
absolutely love that image of drawing out the language from the earth through my feet up, passing my heart and out the mouth. And I got this sense that there's a laziness the other way, because it takes responsibility and awareness in order to do that. Whereas our language has come in through the head and out the mouth, and it's a laziness. It's actually a dulling, I don't know how to explain it, but I find it very very beautiful, a very beautiful image to kind of end with, this drawing out language from earth, because that's her voice. Then you become her voice. And then when your heart is connected, awareness is connected. So you become more responsible in what you choose to speak.
Yeah, I do. I could go along with those thoughts, which I do, and even to make them more, responsible in a way that I would say is to be responsible to consciousness rather than to conscience, because consciousness always swallows conscience up, just like before I described the box within, the box that we're sitting in now is separate from the consciousness, from that where that consciousness has swallowed our conscience up. So we're working out a conscience, an individuality where I feel like I'm wrong, or I'm wronging somebody, and there's no respect within conscience except, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing according to rules and regulations. But when you're in consciousness, there's always respect, and that's how nature is nurturing each other, by just living with respect, consciousness for each being out there. And we have to stop being pareidolians. In other words, we have to stop applying human value to something, because we're still judging, is that mine, and can I cut that tree down and build me a house, and how much of that can I measure that belongs to me? So if it's not of human value to us in our survival here, then it doesn't mean anything to us. So we lose consciousness with it, we lose connection with it. And so this language that we're speaking now, it's going to take a long time, because we're not going to get it now. The instant gratification that we're looking for by writing a book or whatever is not going to happen within this lifetime. But we are programmed to think that we better do something now, but we don't know how to do something now, because we're thinking about the future and the past, and trying to make our rights wrong, our wrongs right, and that we make something better. And it's always losing consciousness of who we are now. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And I just want to add that respect is not, I feel this very potently, that respect is always a now thing as well, and connected to every relationship that you sense into. So it's not a humanized form of respect that you have to respect me and respect my boundaries. It's a completely different note, as I feel it, when connecting or when entering relationship, or the knowledge of relationship with nature. It's always, you can't foretell what respect is in that moment with that creature. And the minute something else moves along the lines, the respect changes, because energy always changes. So again, the awareness and the alertness defines the respect that is needed in every moment. I just wanted to add that, because respect is another word that is very much confined to a certain set of rules by society.
And all it means is to look again.
To look again, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tiokasin, it's been a mind-blowing conversation with you in the best possible way ever. And to look again is a good end note. I just want to also ask you here at the end, if people want to learn more about your message, your ways, your music, your books, to do that, where can they find it?
Well, I would do a general search on that World Wide Web and be caught up in that, or just generally listen to the earth. And that's where you'll find the message of the music that I play, because I think we all need to do that rather than giving me the attention. I think we need to put that looking for value set within the earth, and that it comes from the earth, because you can come listen to my music by buying a CD and all that, but isn't that too convenient? Because maybe we have to understand our own music, our own relationship with the music that's already playing from the earth, and that's where it is. So that music doesn't belong to me. It just brings attention to the music, to the message. Message is always bigger than I am, so I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending the time with us here today. I really appreciate it. It's been an amazing talk, and I hope everybody will go out and take a moment and listen to the music, both within and so-called without themselves, for today. Thank you, Tiokasin.
Thank you very much. And remember, all of this that we've said, we can't put it in the box. Yeah, it can't be contained within that box anymore, because the box is ready to come down. And I think that'll be a good thing for the earth. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Earth Conversations podcast. If you'd like to explore more in-depth material on how to open up to hearing the conversation that the Earth is trying to have with us, please visit our blog at earthconversations.org, where you can also sign up to be notified through email when new podcast conversations are ready, along with new articles and events. We would like to thank you for taking the time today to open up to the heart of the earth and her ways of communicating with us. It is our sincere wish that you will tune into this greater conversation that she so desperately seeks us to have with her at this moment in time. To find the track to the wonderful music that underscores this podcast, simply follow the link below to iTunes or Spotify. Please take good care of yourself and the earth, and until next time, go lie your heart at the ground and listen.
É terra, é mar, é vida infinita, é amor incondicional, é abraço apertado, carinho sempre dado, o aconchego no colo e o alimento no peito. É vida infinita. Mother, mother.